Welcome, Paul McKenna, to Adulting with Emilia. I'm so excited to have you in my podcast.
Thank you. It's lovely to be here with you, Emilia.
Okay, so I want to go right back to a moment that you were a young Paul, you were working as a DJ, and you probably didn't imagine that one day you're gonna hypnotize people for a living.
Mm-hmm.
But there was one conversation that changed it all. Can you take us back to that moment and share it with you?
Sure. I'm growing up, I had this sense that I was going to be well known. And I thought it would be in the area of communication. And I was a radio DJ, right? And I loved being a DJ. It was great back in the 1980s. And I started my career on an illegal pirate radio station on a ship out in the Atlantic Ocean, because there wasn't a lot of radio stations then. And this forward-thinking Irishman, wonderful character, he thought, I'll start my own radio station. And it became huge. It's kind of legendary. So I worked in local radio, and I had a bad day one day. I'd broken up with my girlfriend. I had a row with my boss, and I was living in this little apartment, and the people there were making a noise and keeping me up, and I had to do a morning show. Anyway, I went off to interview the local hypnotherapist. And he said, look, rather than, you interview me, I think I should hypnotize you because you look stressed out. And I was like, well, I was benevolently skeptical. So I said, knock yourself out. So I sat back, and it was amazing. Suddenly, I began to feel so relaxed. And my mind slowed down and my burdens lifted, and I felt this beautiful inner peace and stillness. And I came out of the trance, which I thought had been 5 minutes. It had been 30 minutes. And I felt so good. And I said, have you got a book on this? And he lent me a book. It was called Transformations by Richard Bandler and John Green. It's still the best book I've ever read on hypnosis. And I read this book and I suddenly figured out, that's how it works. And I started practicing on my friends, or I'd be at a party, right? I'd say, I'm learning hypnosis, and someone would say, well, it won't work on me. And I'll go, well, shall we find out? And I'd have them dancing like a ballerina and doing all sorts of stupid stuff. But I also used it to help people to quit smoking and lose weight and things like that, right? And, pass their exams and all sorts of things. So, what I did was, that was really the moment it all changed for me. There have been several of these sort of destiny moments that have happened in my life, but that was the moment I'm thinking I'm interviewing this guy. The next thing I went, I'm obsessed with hypnosis. I want to be a hypnotist. And, it all sort of changed in that moment.
That's such an amazing story. So the moment that you read the book, that was the moment that you realized that it's something that you have to do.
Yeah, I realized how it works, and I was just drawn to it. So I'm quite a compulsive person anyway, but basically if I get interested in something, I get sort of obsessed with it. And, even now, I love talking about hypnosis. I'm always learning people are inventing new psychological techniques. We live in this age where there's a sort of spiritual, psychological sort of renaissance going on, and why people are listening to a podcast like this, because self-improvement is a huge business now, but it's also really what's needed. I mean, we've come out of a biological pandemic, we're in a psychological pandemic because there's so much anxiety and stress and depression and all that sort of stuff going on. I mean, if you open a newspaper, you turn on the TV, you're under attack. It's the war, it's the virus, it's the economy, it's something. So there's a lot of very negative messages being fed into people's minds by our media. And things like, this podcast is a positive message. So there's lots now available, particularly online. I mean, when I started out, there was only a few videos and lots of books. But now, there's so much content. 90% of the information and data that's here in the world right now has only been here for 2 years. So we're gathering more and more information all the time. And, I love the way that the world is changing. At the turn of the century, there was 7% of the population were online, just 7. Now it's 67% and growing all the time.
Okay, for someone that all this world that you're talking about this, like they've heard about hypnosis, but they don't really even know what it is and what you do. Can you explain it in a simple way for everyone to understand?
Absolutely. So hypnosis, there are sort of three schools of thought around it. Some people believe it's a special state of concentration. Some people say it's not, it's just you comply with the hypnotist because of, their force of personality. And I'm saying it doesn't matter what it is so much. I'm saying it's what you can do with it. Now, very often hypnosis in a way is another word for thinking. Right. And see, when we concentrate to the exclusion of everything else, that's one way of describing hypnosis, the loss of the multiplicity of the foci of attention. So a good analogy would be when you're watching television, right? You forget about the carpet, the curtains, the sofa, and you plug yourself in to what's happening on the screen. If something scary happens, you feel scared. Something romantic happens, you feel the romantic feelings. And in a sense, a hypnotist is doing the same sort of thing. So say, for example, somebody's got a fear of public speaking, right? It's the largest fear in the world now, largest phobia. And it's usually installed at school. You stand up, read in front of the class, someone points out your mistakes, people giggle, etc. So people later in life are frightened of being judged and when they go to speak to a group of people they don't know. So what I do as a hypnotist is I say to somebody, remember a time when you were happily speaking to friends. You're not frightened of being judged. You're authentic and natural, and it feels comfortable. And what we do is I capture that state of mind and body, and I say, now I'd like you to think about speaking to a group of strangers. So literally you take, the set of feelings that you have for speaking to friends and you map it into speaking to people in other situations. So a hypnotist is in a way like a sort of psychological designer. Yeah. And the way it works, again, I'm going to try and do it simply, is about half of what we do every day is a habit, right? So you don't think, shall I clean my teeth? Shall I put my clothes on? Shall I, open the door? You just do it, right? It's an automatic habit. And most of the habits we have support us, but sometimes we pick up habits that don't. So smoking, overeating, phobias, which is an irrational fear, unnecessary anxiety, things like that, insomnia, not being able to sleep, those sorts of things. And what a hypnotist can do is relax somebody into a state of concentration where they can talk to the unconscious mind. The conscious mind is the mind we actively think with, the one that we chatter away with all day long. The unconscious mind is the larger mind, right? So it's all of your wisdom and creativity. It's controlling all sorts of aspects of you, like the pressure of your blood, things like that. It's doing all these sorts of things that you don't have to think about doing. But what you can do is you can talk to the unconscious mind and you can reprogram it so that the person doesn't need to overeat or they don't suffer from insomnia. Their anxiety disappears and they feel resilient and strong.
That's powerful. But that makes me think about today's world. Young people, there's social media, everyone is having self-doubt, you're never feeling enough, and you're constantly being programmed this things that we don't even know about. So how can someone, or can they even use those techniques to hypnotize themselves and feel confident?
Yes, yeah, absolutely. Well, you're absolutely right, Emilia. These days, there is, particularly now, there's some good things about social media. It means people can meet and they can, if they've got a specialist interest, they can connect with each other. On the negative side, though, there's obviously some mean-spirited people on social media, but also some people present this sort of ridiculous reality, the influencers in particular. And so people then compare themselves to these unrealistic, expectations that are created on social media, and they feel less self-worth, right? It's amazing. Something like some small percentage of the population has got the genetic inheritance to look like a supermodel, right? And a lot of people are looking at magazines and going, I need to look like that. Otherwise I hate myself. I feel shame and these sorts of things. And so you can absolutely use hypnosis to improve someone's self-belief, their self-confidence, and also, to make people feel good about themselves, and that's kind of what I'm doing. I'm getting people to feel good, but also I'm creating freedom. Right. So, if, say, you can't look at the bar of chocolate without having to have some, right? Or you can't have one piece, you've got to demolish the whole bar of chocolate. The chocolate's in charge and not you. So what I do is I make it so you can take it or leave it. So you've got freedom. If you can't get on an aeroplane without feeling frightened, then that's an irrational fear, because flying is one of the safest forms of travel in the world, certainly the Western world. And so, if I can make it so you get on, unless there's a good reason, like the airplane's got one of the wings missing, you should then feel unsafe about getting on it. But if you haven't got control over those thoughts and feelings, because that's the thing. People say to me, "Isn't hypnosis mind control?" I go, "Well, yeah, it is. It's giving you more control over your mind." That's really essentially what I'm doing.
Okay, but now if someone is like, they're not there yet, they're not feeling confident, what can they do to instantly feel better or build it up over time?
I'll do a technique with you right now.
Okay,
right? Great. And anyone who's listening, if it's safe to do so, close your eyes, right? So if you close your eyes. Now, imagine a great big cinema screen in front of you, right? And on that screen, imagine a you that's confident, a you that's sure of, you're sure of yourself, you feel relaxed and alert, but you've got this kind of beautiful resilience. You're radiating a happiness, right? Look at the expression on your face, the light behind your eyes, the posture you have, this confident you, the way you exude confidence, the way you exude a self-belief and an inner sense of happiness. And then when you're ready, float over and into the screen and step into you, this confident you. See through the eyes of your confident self. Hear your internal dialogue, strong and confident, saying, "All is well. All is well." And feel how good it feels. And notice where you feel the good feelings strongest in your body, and give them a color. And move any color you like. Imagine moving those good feelings and that color up through your body, up through your neck into your head, around your head, and move that color in your imagination down through your shoulders into your arms and hands and fingers. Move that color down through your chest into your legs, adds it all the way to the tips of your toes, and double the brightness, and double it again until you're glowing with this confidence. And now imagine taking this confident feeling with you into the rest of the day, into next week and into next month, into next year, into your home life, into your work life, into challenging situations. Imagine feeling this confident, and no matter what happens, you feel good. And then when you're ready, open your eyes and come on back out, feeling good. How do you feel?
I feel really good. It's amazing. Is there like the most common place where people start to feel the good feelings?
Well, people say these around their heart often, but that's what they tell me. But everybody's different.
I started feeling it here. I wondered if there's like a positive and negative.
No, there's no.
It's different for everyone.
It's just different for everyone, and everyone chooses a different color. I choose gold, and I put a lot.
That's what I chose.
You chose gold too,
yeah.
Right. So what we're doing is we're using an imaginary color to amplify a feeling, right? Mm-hmm. So get the good feeling going. So first of all, build it. Yeah, that's me being confident. Step in. Yeah. Then build to, a much more confident state. And then what we did was I said, take it with you into the rest of the day, next week, next month, right? And then I said, take it into home life, work life, and difficult situations. Now, what I'm doing is I'm using a principle that the human mind likes, which is generalization. So as a kid, you learn how to open a door, and then you go, oh, I see how doors work. All doors work like that. Otherwise, you would have to learn how to go in and out of a room each day, right? And so when you've generalized about doors, we just asked your unconscious mind to generalize about confidence. So by going, feel this good tomorrow, next week, next month, next year, and in various environments, the unconscious mind goes, oh, I see. You want me to feel like this more of the time.
That's exciting because it gives us idea how you can apply it everywhere. So I imagine like before job interviews, public speaking, like you said, like it can
Yeah.
really change the way you show up every day, and that's so powerful.
Well, all professional athletes now have somebody like me, have a success coach, and they do a thing called mental rehearsal. So they imagine winning the race or the match, or doing it all over and over and over again. So they're training their brain and also their muscle memory for success.
Yeah. Okay, but now, how do I know that someone is not using those techniques against me? Like, what if they use it for me to... Of course, it would be nice that I go on a date with someone and I want them to fall in love with me, so I start to use the techniques. But what if someone is using it against me and I don't know?
Okay, so you're absolutely right. Professional communicators like politicians and salespeople, they use persuasive techniques like a hypnotist to get people to vote for them or buy things, and see, there's a difference between just, if you genuinely believe in something, using your best efforts to convince somebody, so, if somebody says to me, I want to, can you do this or that? If I can and I want to, then I say, and I convince them of it. But there was a guy who, in fact, there's several people who used to teach people psychological techniques for seduction. Right. And the chap that was really good at this, he doesn't do it anymore. And I think he's now in a happy, functional relationship. But you'd have to have fairly low self-worth if you didn't feel you were enough and you had to use trickery to get people to do things that they don't want to do. But you're absolutely right. Any professional communicator can use their skills, they don't have to be a hypnotist, to persuade people to do things that are not in their best interest. And we see this quite a bit, as I say, politicians, salespeople, cult leaders, those kinds of people.
Is it possible to see through that?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I would teach things like persuasion and influence at school. So you could recognize, a lot of influence takes place on social media, and also, a lot of good stuff too. But I would teach people to ask questions like, what's the credibility of the person saying this message? Why should I believe them? Test it out, question it. Is there any evidence to support what they're saying is true? What do they gain by getting me to do this and this, right? Is it in my interest or is it more in their interest? That sort of thing. And so when you understand the language of persuasion and influence, because hypnotists and politicians and salespeople use similar language patterns. They're very persuasive, right? And that's just something that's always gone on, But I suppose it comes down to also your intent. So my intent when I'm working with someone is to help them. And I think people subconsciously pick up on that, right? They know that, because, what's in it for me if not? I mean, I genuinely want to help people. And that's also something that right-minded people feel good when they help other people, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it feels good. But people that are sociopaths or narcissists, they don't. But that's because they're all into themselves and of course, so they never have that joy of being selfless and helping other people. There's a Chinese saying, which is, if you want to be happy for an hour, take a nap. If you want to be happy for a week, take a vacation. If you want to be happy for a year, win the lottery. If you want to be happy for the rest of your life, help other people.
That makes me think at the moment, before this and knowing about that, I thought it's something like magical, that people do something like mysterious a little bit, but I think it should be something that we're all taught because it's something much more normal. And so I think schools should definitely have some lessons on that and adapt it. What do you think about it? Would it benefit us? I
think it would benefit massively if people were taught persuasion and influence. But also, I think people at school should learn confidence and self-esteem. Yeah. There should be a class in that. There should also be accelerated learning. There are all kinds of really great accelerated learning technologies. One of my favorites is mind mapping. My late friend Tony Bazan came up with this. You can find out loads of information online, but basically, if I have to design a speech, or if I want to remember stuff, I mind map it. Because mind mapping, the way we do it, in a linear sense, reading, is because we're a left brain dominated culture, isn't really always the greatest way of learning things, because we're a mix of right and left brain. The left brain is logic, linear, and sequential thinking. The right brain is imagery, symbolism, emotion, that sort of stuff. So when we mind map, we use words, but we also use symbols, and we lay it out instead of in a linear way. We lay it out in various sections, and so it's closer to how the brain naturally works. And so it's a fantastic way of learning things, but it's also a fantastic way of designing something. So the speech I just gave earlier, I did a circle in the center, and I did all these little branches out of various things that I want to talk about, like a brainstorm. And then my mind organizes that into a linear presentation.
That's interesting. Yeah, I should try that. I think I've tried it in a unconscious way a little bit, but not like this. I think it's so important.
You could look it up online, mind mapping. The great thing is now you can just say, you can ask GPT or whatever to say, teach me mind mapping in 10 minutes, please, or 20 minutes. Or you could probably, Google it and find a video. Literally anything can be explained to you, in these like 10 to 15 minute videos on YouTube. And I think that's a wonderful thing, because basically when I went to school in the 60s or 70s, it was really boring, right? It was just so boring, right? Learning by rote. I am told I have a thing called ADHD, which is a deficit disorder, attention deficit disorder, right? And now I don't have any deficit of attention if I'm interested in something, right? But, if it's something I'm not interested in, like I had to look at this contract the other day, and I get so bored in the end, right? And so one of the other characteristics of ADHD is that you think really fast, and you think multiple things very fast. Now, I don't see it necessarily as a disorder. I see it as an adaptation of the species. Because when I was growing up in England, there were 3 TV channels, and one day there were 4. Now there's 4 million because of the internet. And so, when I can think really fast, I can think multiple, and also I can hold thoughts that are not that are in competition with each other, at the same time still function. And that gives me a superpower as a therapist or a presenter, right? But it can drive my wife mad when I'm watching TV. My brain is racing and scattered thoughts, and I'm commenting on everything. So I use meditation and self-hypnosis to regulate my state of mind and body. And so these things like ADHD, I believe it's real. I don't necessarily believe it's necessarily a disorder. I think it's an adaptation of the species. Do you know, there's a really brilliant video about education. It's about 10 minutes long, and it's my late friend Sir Ken Robinson. He was the most beautiful soul, a brilliant man. And in 10 minutes, he explains how the sort of education system works, kind of what's wrong with it, and, how we should really be thinking as human beings. Yeah, so there's a lovely little cartoon thing. If you put Ken Robinson and the letters RSA into Google, it will take you to this lovely little video where it is explained by Ken so beautifully.
I will go and watch that. I feel like that would be super interesting.
Yeah.
You mentioned the meditation, and that has calmed your mind when you have a lot of thoughts. So I think it's really common for people to go into this loophole of negative thoughts. So that's also something that you can solve with mind control and meditation.
Yeah, meditation has so many benefits, right? And it's in the family of self-hypnosis, the same similar sort of things. I mean, often meditation is just for peacefulness and for mindfulness. Hypnotherapy is usually with an outcome, weight loss, quit smoking, whatever. But a regular meditation is not only just good for the individual. There's this really interesting experiment that's been done over 50 times where a group of about 2,000 meditators get together in a major city like Washington or Jerusalem or wherever. And they all sit there and they meditate for 2 weeks. And the violent crime rate goes down massively, right? Yeah. Because of what scientists call a peace field effect, right? So when there's a boxing match on television, the murder rate goes up, right? It actually goes up, right? Because
Didn't know that.
yeah, I know, because again, the collective consciousness of people is angry, because it's a fight. And when you get thousands of people meditating in the same place at the same time, the violent crime rate goes down. So basically, meditation is good for the world.
Wow. That's really interesting. I didn't know that about boxing. That's really like interesting way to put it.
Well, do you know, there's another thing as well that's really interesting. There's a friend of mine who's he's a scientist, and he put these electronic coin flippers into universities all around the world, right? They're flipping zeros and ones in a random pattern. Now, when there's an incident of mass consciousness, be it the Super Bowl, the death of Princess Diana, the O.J. Simpson verdict, something like that, they go out of a random pattern into an organized pattern. So before the planes, they hit the Twin Towers, had even taken off, the electronic coin flippers all over the world went out of a random pattern into an organized one. So this, leads us into the whole quantum consciousness, area, which is evolving now. We're looking at the brain as more than just a sort of mechanical device. We're seeing it the way a quantum physicist would, that it's able to do much more than just work like a computer. It's much more complex.
I can't wait for the next generation to be able to learn about this at school already, because I feel like our brain and our mind and body and everything is such a big part of how we, that's the machine that has been given to us to exist in this world, and we don't even know what we can do with it and the power of it and how to use that.
Well, that's right. We are learning much more. And what's going to be very interesting is how the human species and AI integrate, because it will at some point. Yeah. And then we'll literally go through a change in the species from which we can never return, by the way. But I'm an optimist, right? I tend to think it's going to be good. We live in the time we live in right now is called, the Chinese call it Wei Qi. And it's two symbols: danger, opportunity. And right now, the world is geopolitically fairly dangerous, but also we've got all these opportunities with, all these amazing new technologies, things like AI and biotech and, all the other stuff that's going on, the stuff in terms of medicine and science and the arts and spirituality. And so, I think we live in possibly the most exciting time. The next decade is going to be like 100 years rammed into 10. It's going to be extraordinary. So while some people go, oh, it's the end of the world, I say, oh yeah, there's definitely challenges, and it's interesting. There was something called the Cambridge Project a few years ago, where some of the smartest people in the world get together in Cambridge and they're asked, what are the 3 biggest threats to humanity? Number 3, nuclear weapons. Number 2, rogue biotech. Number 1, AI. And see, I'm fascinated. I love AI. I think it's extraordinary, but I do also understand why some people are scared and have warned against it. I get the arguments.
Yeah, I think it's important to know how to use it the best way and not be scared.
Yeah.
But also be aware of that.
Yeah, we've got to have caution around it, because it's, I watched a fascinating talk the other day by, I'm trying to think of the man's name, he's often referred to as the godfather of AI. And he explained areas where we need to be concerned. And by the end of it, I thought, yeah, I can see what you mean. But at the same time, the toothpaste is out of the tube, the genie's out of the bottle. We can't put it back in now. So we've started something. We'll see where it ends up.
Yeah, I think we will value more real people, real conversations, and moments like this when people can share their knowledge and just be who they really are.
Well, I think there'll be a value in being human, right? Yeah. Because, right now you could have an AI radio station. You could have an AI therapist, right?
Yeah,
and I'm about to launch my AI therapist app, right? So it's really interesting. It's me talking to you. And saying exactly the things I would say, right? And I found it kind of brilliant, but also a bit strange at first. But the thing is, what I want to be able to do is to help as many people as I can. So, instead of somebody having to travel to Europe to see me or whatever, they can just on their phone hit a button, and I'm there talking to them, saying exactly the things that I would say. One of my friends used it the other night. She told me, she said, I was all wound up and anxious and feeling bad, and because I've asked a few friends to try it out, and she hit the button and she texted me the next day. She goes, "Oh my God, you calmed me down and made me feel good." And of course, it wasn't me; it was a machine. But there will be a value in future of it not being AI and it being an actual human being.
But what is it called, and when can we try it?
Okay,
I'm really curious.
So the AI won't be on my app yet for about a month or so. It's going to be in early September. But look, if you go to the say you're on Apple, you go to the Apple Store and you just put my name in, Paul McKenna, then this app downloads, and what happens is it's got all of my various the subjects that I cover, and so it gives you a little thing like it says weight loss or confidence or health that you want, or you want some positivity. It takes you to and then what happens is, say I want certain. So, here we go. Let's try anxiety. That's a good one.
Let's try that.
Yeah. So there's anxiety, freedom from anxiety, and then what happens is you push a button and I speak. So here we go. Hello, this is Paul McKenna, and welcome to Freedom from Anxiety. See, so that, and then what happens is, say you want to use a hypnotic trance. What happens? You push that button, and a hypnotic trance starts to make you calm.
That's so cool.
Yeah. So you basically got all these various subjects, even better golf, exam success, confidence, quitting smoking and vaping, sleep, etc., all on one app. And then we're going to add the AI element in like 6 weeks or so. So you'll be able to talk to an AI version of me to help you with any problems.
I'm excited to do that. And I know a lot of people who can benefit from all the topics that I already saw. So that's amazing. Okay. What is something that you would hypnotize, if you could, all my generation, hypnotize them and put something in their brain, like plant them one thing, what would that be?
Right. If I could give people one gift, right, it would be the ability to relax and get calm and peaceful at will, literally like a switch. When you're feeling overwhelmed, you're feeling stressed, anxious, it's all just too much, to be able to flip a switch and go calm, peaceful. Okay, I feel good. I can make good decisions now. Oh, that's nice. So that would be the thing that I would give to everybody.
That's so beautiful.
Thank you.
I would love that. Paul, thank you so much for being in my podcast. It's such an honor.
Oh, no. Pleasure, Emilia. Pleasure. You've asked some great questions. I mean, I love talking about this, so it's great to sit and have a lovely conversation like this. And, so thank you for inviting me.
It just made me more curious, and I have now even more questions. So I can't wait to see you talk and learn more. Thank you.
Thank you. God bless.